The galaxy made one mistake. They killed a human envoy. Part 1. Susan Miller looked out the viewport of the starship Freedom's Call. The stars stretched out before her, beautiful and infinite. After years of preparation, humanity was finally ready to meet the wider galaxy. As Earth's chosen diplomat, Susan felt the weight of 7 billion lives on her shoulders. Beautiful, isn't it? Alan Wright joined her at the viewport. The former military officer now served as her head of security. His weathered face showed little emotion, but Susan had learned to read the subtle changes in his eyes. Terrifying and wonderful at the same time, Susan replied. Do you think they'll like us, Alan? Alan shrugged. Does it matter? We're here, now. No going back. Captain Peter Hayes's voice came over the ship's communication system. Ambassador Miller, we're approaching the coordinates. The conclave station is coming into view. Susan and Alan moved to the main observation deck where the rest of the diplomatic team had gathered. Cynthia Jones, their xenolinguist, was running final checks on her translation devices. Her hands trembled slightly from excitement or nerves. Probably both. There it is, Captain Hayes said. The conclave station appeared ahead of them. It wasn't a space station as humans had imagined. It was a massive ring, at least 50 miles across, rotating slowly in the emptiness of space. Smaller ships moved around it like bees around a hive. My God, Cynthia whispered. It's magnificent. Susan took a deep breath. Remember, everyone, we are representing all of humanity. First impressions matter. The Freedom's Call received docking instructions and approached the massive station. Susan studied the information they had been sent ahead of time. The Galactic Conclave consisted of 7 major species who had formed an alliance thousands of years ago. Earth would be the newest and least advanced member, if they were accepted. As they docked, Susan's team made final preparations. They wore their formal diplomatic uniforms designed to be respectful, while displaying Earth's united flag on their shoulders. Translation systems online and functioning, Cynthia confirmed. Whatever they say, we should understand most of it. Security. Scans complete, Alan added. They've allowed us to keep our defensive sidearms as requested. That's a good sign. When the airlock opened, Susan was the first to step through. The reception area was vast and designed to accommodate beings of different sizes. Standing before them were representatives of the 7 conclave species. The tallest was clearly the HFY ambassador. Nearly 8 feet tall with pale blue skin and 4 arms, Lord Zithar wore elaborate robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. His face had no nose, just breathing slits, and his eyes were large and completely black. Welcome, humans, Lord Zithar said, his words translated through Cynthia's devices. The conclave acknowledges your arrival. Susan noticed it wasn't quite a welcome, just an acknowledgement. She stepped forward and bowed slightly. On behalf of Earth and all humans, we thank you for this opportunity. We come seeking friendship and knowledge. The next hours were filled with formal introductions to each species representative. Besides the HFY, there were the Mithrani, who resembled large felines, the Xel, short, stocky beings with rough skin, and 4 other species, each more alien than the last. Susan focused on diplomatic niceties, but she couldn't help noticing the tension in the room. The representatives were polite but distant. Only the Mithrani ambassador showed genuine warmth, her fur rippling in what Susan guessed was a gesture of welcome. After the introductions, the human delegation was shown to their quarters. The rooms were comfortable but strange, with furniture designed for beings with different body shapes. What do you think? Susan asked her team when they were alone. They're not telling us something, Alan said immediately. Did you notice how they kept exchanging looks when they thought we weren't watching? Cynthia nodded. The HFY especially. My translation software picked up some sub-vocalizations they were making. I couldn't translate all of it, but I caught the word threat several times. Susan frowned. We need to proceed carefully. The conclave has been watching Earth for centuries according to their initial message. They must have concerns about us. Later that evening, the humans were invited to a formal dinner. The food was specially prepared to be safe for human consumption. Susan noticed that Lord Zithar watched them closely as they ate. Your species has achieved much in a short time. the HFY Lord commented. Faster than light travel in less than a century after your first spaceflight. Most impressive. Thank you, Susan replied. Humans can be quite resourceful when inspired. Indeed. And what inspires humans most, Ambassador Miller? Curiosity? Greed? Fear? Susan chose her words carefully. All of those at times. But mostly hope, I think. Hope for a better future. Lord Zithar's expression was unreadable. An interesting answer. As the dinner continued, Susan felt increasingly uneasy. The HFY delegation seemed to be steering the conversation toward human conflicts, Earth's military capabilities, and resource consumption. When they returned to their quarters, Susan decided to send an update to Earth. She recorded a message, describing her concerns. Something isn't right, she told the recorder. The conclave is divided about our presence here. I've identified the HFY as potentially hostile. They seem particularly interested in our military capacity. As she prepared to encrypt and send the message, Alan burst into her room. Ambassador, we have a problem. The environmental controls in our quarters are behaving strangely, and Cynthia's scanners have detected an unknown substance being pumped into the air system. Susan immediately activated the emergency protocols they had prepared. She quickly added to her message, possible attack in progress. The HFY. She attached all the data they had gathered before sending the encrypted transmission toward Earth. Alan was sealing the room when the first symptoms began. Susan's vision blurred and her lungs burned with each breath. Gas masks, Alan shouted, but his movements were already sluggish. Susan realized they wouldn't make it to the emergency equipment. As darkness crept into the edges of her vision, she saw the door slide open. Lord Zithar stood there, watching with those black, emotionless eyes. You could have been useful, the HFY Lord said softly, but ultimately too dangerous to allow in the galaxy. Susan's last thought as consciousness faded was of Earth, millions of miles away, and the message she hoped had reached home. People would need to know what happened here. They would need to be warned. She couldn't know that her death would not be the end, but rather the beginning of the galaxy's greatest mistake. The galaxy made one mistake. They killed a human envoy. Part 2, 6 weeks passed with no word from the Freedom's call. At Earth Command Headquarters, people began to worry. The ship should have reported back by now. Kevin Garcia sat at his communications station, monitoring deep space signals. He had been working double shifts for days, hoping to catch any message from the diplomatic team. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he refused to leave his post. You need rest, Garcia, his supervisor said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Just one more hour, Kevin replied. They're out there somewhere. As if answering his faith, his equipment suddenly picked up a faint signal. Kevin sat up straight, adjusting controls to strengthen the reception. I've got something, he shouted. It's encrypted with Ambassador Miller's personal code. Within minutes, the command center was filled with senior officers. The message was incomplete and damaged, but what they could recover sent a wave of shock through the room. The video showed Susan Miller's pale face as she urgently spoke. Something isn't right. The conclave is divided. HFY is potentially hostile. Possible attack in progress. The last few seconds showed a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms watching as Susan collapsed. The recording ended there. Admiral Frank Patterson's face hardened as he watched. Play it again, he ordered. After the second viewing, he turned to his officers. We've just witnessed the murder of Earth's diplomatic team. Word spread quickly. President Olivia Warren called an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Leaders from around the world gathered to view the disturbing footage. This was not a misunderstanding, President Warren said, her voice steady despite her anger. This was a deliberate act. Ambassador Miller and her team were murdered while on a peaceful mission. The room erupted in outrage. Calls for immediate retaliation came from multiple nations. President Warren raised her hand for silence. We will respond, but we will do so intelligently. We extended our hand in peace and they responded with treachery and murder. Humanity will not stand for this. Admiral Patterson presented their limited options. Earth had only 12 interstellar vessels, all less advanced than what they had seen of the Conclave's technology. "We are outmatched in terms of technology," he admitted, "but we can be smarter in how we fight. They think they know humans. They've been watching us, studying us, but they've never fought us." Dr. Diane Russell, head of Earth's Xenobiology Division, stepped forward. "From the footage, we've identified the species as the Veshrai. We need to learn everything we can about them. Their biology, technology, culture. Knowledge will be our advantage." President Warren nodded. "We need time. While we prepare a military response, we should also attempt to contact the other species in the Conclave." Ambassador Miller mentioned that the Conclave was divided about our presence. Some may be potential allies. In the days that followed, Earth mobilized like never before. Old rivalries between nations were set aside as humanity united against an external threat. The military began training for space combat. Scientists worked to improve Earth's defensive capabilities. Admiral Patterson gathered his officers aboard the flagship Unity. "We can't match them ship for ship," he told them, pointing to images of the Conclave station. "But we can be unpredictable. Hit and run. Take what we can. Learn from each encounter." His strategy was bold. Rather than a direct assault on Veshrai territories, human ships would target isolated outposts and research stations. Their goal was to capture technology and information, then disappear before reinforcements arrived. 3. Veshrai think we're primitive, Admiral Patterson said. "Let's use that assumption against them." Meanwhile, Dr. Russell's team made a breakthrough. Studying the fragments of data from Susan's transmission, they identified potential weaknesses in Veshrai biology. "Their respiratory system is sensitive to certain compounds," she explained to the military leaders. "We could develop non-lethal weapons that would incapacitate them without killing." President Warren approved the plan. "We want justice, not genocide," she said. "Show the galaxy that even in war, humans maintain our principles." As the military prepared, Earth also launched a diplomatic initiative. Broadcasts were sent to all known conclave frequencies, directed at the non-Veshrai species. "To the members of the Galactic Conclave," President Warren's message began, "the Veshrai have murdered our diplomatic team in violation of all principles of peaceful contact. We do not believe this reflects the will of all Conclave members. Earth still desires peace and cooperation with those who share these values." The message concluded with a warning. "To the Veshrai leadership, we know what you have done. Justice is coming." 3 months after Susan Miller's death, Earth launched its first strike. 3 human ships appeared near a remote Veshrai research station. Using the element of surprise, they overwhelmed the minimal defenses and boarded the station. The mission was a success. The human forces captured valuable technology and data before destroying the station's propulsion systems and disappearing into hyperspace. No humans were lost in the operation. Similar raids followed. Each time, humans learned more about Veshrai technology and adapted it for their own use. Dr. Russell's team made rapid progress reverse engineering alien devices. The Veshrai, caught off guard by the human tactics, responded with increasing frustration. They had expected humans to be easy targets, not clever opponents who refused to fight according to conventional rules. Lord Shithar, now promoted to High Commander of the Veshrai forces, addressed the conclave. "These humans are more dangerous than we anticipated. We must unite against them before they become a greater threat." But the other species were hesitant. The Mithrani, in particular, expressed concern about the Veshrai actions. "You murdered their diplomats without conclave approval," the Mithrani representative said. "This conflict is of your making, not ours." The Veshrai, isolated and facing unexpected resistance, decided on a bold move. They would launch a direct assault on Earth's solar system. With their superior technology, they expected to quickly overwhelm humanity's defenses and force a surrender. As their fleet prepared to depart for Earth, Lord Zithar felt confident. "This primitive species has been fortunate so far," he told his officers. But luck always runs out. Soon they will understand their place in the galaxy. He could not have been more wrong. The Veshrai were about to discover exactly why killing human diplomats had been their greatest mistake. The galaxy made one mistake. They killed a human envoy. Part 3. The Veshrai attack fleet entered the edge of Earth's solar system with confidence. 50 warships, each larger and more powerful than anything humans had built, moved steadily toward the third planet. Lord Zithar watched from the command deck of his flagship, the Dominant Will. Scans show minimal defenses around their outer planets, his second-in-command reported. Their ships are gathering near their homeworld. Lord Zithar smiled. As expected. They huddled together for protection. It will make destroying them easier. What the Veshrai failed to understand was that Earth had been preparing. For 3 months, humans had been studying captured Veshrai technology. Dr. Russell and her team had worked day and night to understand alien systems. Each raid on Veshrai outposts had provided more knowledge. Admiral Patterson stood on the bridge of the Unity, watching as the enemy fleet approached. Unlike traditional military uniforms, he wore a simple gray jumpsuit with minimal markings. The human fleet had adapted quickly to space warfare. "They think we're waiting for them," he said to his officers. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The 12 Earth ships were indeed gathered near the planet, but they weren't alone. Hidden throughout the solar system were hundreds of small, unmanned drones. Some were disguised as space debris, others hidden in the rings of Saturn or among the asteroids. As the Veshrai fleet passed Mars, Admiral Patterson gave the order. Operation Hornet's Nest begins now. The drones activated simultaneously. Each was equipped with a single powerful weapon based on stolen Veshrai technology. They swarmed toward the alien fleet from all directions. Lord Zithar was shocked when hundreds of small objects suddenly appeared on his sensors. "What is this?" he demanded. Before his crew could respond, the first drones struck. They targeted the engines and weapon systems of the Veshrai ships, causing confusion and damage before the aliens could organize a defense. "Impossible!" Lord Zithar shouted as reports of damage came in from multiple ships. "These humans cannot have such technology." But the drones were only the first surprise. As the Veshrai fleet struggled to deal with the swarm attack, the human ships made their move. Instead of engaging directly, they executed a series of quick, coordinated strikes. They would appear near a damaged Veshrai ship, fire precisely at vulnerable points, then disappear into hyperspace before the aliens could respond. Captain Linda Summers commanded the ship Defiance. Her vessel was smaller than the others but equipped with experimental technology. Dr. Russell had developed a way to overload their FTL drive in a controlled manner, creating a spatial disruption. "All systems ready for Phoenix Protocol," she reported to Admiral Patterson, requesting permission to proceed. "Permission granted, Captain," the Admiral replied. "Good hunting." The Defiance approached the Veshrai flagship, evading defensive fire. Captain Summers addressed her crew. "We have one chance. If we succeed, we change the course of this war. If we fail, we die trying." Her crew worked with calm determination. The Defiance danced through space, avoiding the worst of the enemy. Fire! When they were close enough to the Dominant Will, Captain Summers gave the final order. Initiate Phoenix Protocol. The ship's FTL drive began to overload, creating a growing distortion in space around them. The crew evacuated to escape pods. Captain Summers was the last to leave, staying to ensure the process couldn't be stopped. As her escape pod launched, the Defiance's drive reached critical levels. The resulting spatial disruption wasn't an explosion in the traditional sense. Instead, it created a temporary rift that disabled all energy systems within its range. The Veshrai flagship and nearby vessels suddenly lost power. Their shields, weapons, and engines went dead. The massive ships drifted helplessly in space. Lord Zithar could not believe what was happening. "Restart all systems," he ordered, but his crew could only report failure after failure. The human fleet seized the opportunity. They targeted the defenseless Veshrai ships with precision strikes, disabling rather than destroying them. Within hours, the mighty attack fleet had been rendered helpless. Admiral Patterson opened a communication channel to the HFY flagship. "This is Admiral Frank Patterson of Earth. Your fleet is defeated. We could destroy you, but unlike you, we don't murder those who cannot fight back." Lord Zithar was forced to face the human admiral on the communication screen. "What do you want, human?" "Justice," Admiral Patterson replied simply. "For Ambassador Miller and her team. Return to your territory and deliver this message to your leaders. Earth is not your enemy unless you choose to make us one. We did not start this conflict, but we will finish it if necessary." The defeated HFY fleet was allowed to limp home, carrying news of their unexpected defeat. It was a humiliation Lord Zithar would never forget. The victory at Sol became known throughout the galaxy. The other species of the Conclave were shocked that the primitive humans had defeated the mighty HFY. The Mithrani were the first to reach out to Earth. Their ambassador arrived on a small, unarmed vessel as a show of peaceful intentions. "We wish to open direct communication with your people," the feline-like alien said to President Warren. "What the HFY did was wrong. Not all of us share their views." The Kazel followed shortly after. As a practical, trade-oriented species, they recognized the value of having humans as allies rather than enemies. Greg Foster, who had been Susan Miller's deputy, was appointed as Earth's new ambassador. Where Susan had represented humanity's hopes for peaceful cooperation, Greg embodied their resilience and determination. "We still seek friendship with peaceful species," he told the Mithrani and Gzel representatives. "But we also demand respect. The galaxy must understand that humans are not to be underestimated." News of the human victory and growing alliances infuriated the HFY leadership. They had expected the other species to unite against the human threat. Instead, they found themselves increasingly isolated. In their anger, the HFY authorized attacks on human civilian targets. They believed that humans would surrender if faced with sufficient terror and pain. This proved to be their final mistake. When news reached Earth of an attack on a small research colony, killing hundreds of civilians, humanity's response was not fear, but cold rage. President Warren addressed the planet. "The HFY have shown us who they truly are. They cannot defeat our military, so they target innocent people. They have learned nothing from their defeats." Admiral Patterson proposed a bold plan named Operation Nemesis. It would target key HFY military installations across multiple sectors simultaneously. "The time for limited responses is over," he told Earth's Leadership Council. "We must show them the full consequences of their actions." As preparations for Operation Nemesis began, humans across the solar system united in purpose. The HFY had made their worst mistake yet. They had given humanity a reason to show the galaxy just how dangerous they could be when pushed too far. The galaxy made one mistake. They killed a human envoy, Part 4 operation. Nemesis began at what Earth called 0 hour. 20 ships, 8 of them newly built, launched simultaneous attacks on HFY military bases across 3 sectors of space. Unlike previous raids, these were not quick hit-and-run missions. They were direct, powerful strikes meant to cripple the HFY war machine. Admiral Patterson coordinated the attack from his command ship. "All units report," he ordered. One by one, the captains checked in. Each had a specific target assigned, based on intelligence gathered over months of smaller raids. "Remember," Admiral Patterson told them, "our goal is to end this war, not extend it. Target their military capabilities, not civilian areas." The human fleet had grown stronger with each encounter. Earth scientists had studied captured HFY technology and improved upon it. Human ships now carried shields and weapons that matched or exceeded those of their enemies. But the greatest human advantage was not technological, it was their tactical thinking. The HFY had been at peace for so long that their military strategies had become predictable. Human officers, coming from a species with a long history of conflict, consistently outmaneuvered their opponents. Dr. Russell's team had provided another edge. They had developed a virus that could infect HFY computer systems. It didn't destroy their technology. It simply displayed a message in the HFY language. Justice for Susan Miller. The first reports of success came quickly. Target Alpha neutralized, reported Captain Eric Bennett. Minimal casualties on both sides. Similar messages followed from other captains. The HFY were caught completely unprepared for such a coordinated attack. Greg Foster watched the operation unfold from Earth. As the new ambassador, he knew that military success would strengthen his position in the upcoming diplomatic talks. The HFY made a fundamental error, he told President Warren. They judged us by their standards. They've been a dominant species for so long that they forgot what it means to fight for survival. President Warren nodded. And now they'll learn that humans don't just fight. We finish what others start. Within 24 hours, Operation Nemesis had achieved all its objectives. 17 major HFY military installations had been disabled or destroyed. Their space fleet was reduced to less than half its former strength. More importantly, the other species of the Conclave were watching. The Mithrani, already sympathetic to humans, openly praised the precision of the attack and the restraint shown toward civilian targets. These humans fight with honor, the Mithrani ambassador told the Conclave Council. They could have destroyed HFY cities in revenge for their colony, but they chose not to. The Xel, always practical, began shifting their trade policies to favor Earth. Other species started reaching out to human representatives, seeking to establish their own diplomatic channels. The HFY leadership was in chaos. Lord Zethar, once the architect of the anti-human policy, now faced challenges to his authority. Younger HFY questioned the wisdom of continuing a war they were clearly losing. Admiral Patterson saw an opportunity. We have them on the defensive, he told Earth's Leadership Council. Now is the time to offer terms. President Warren agreed. What do you suggest? Something bold, the Admiral replied. Let's take the fight directly to their homeworld. Not to attack it, but to show them we could if we wanted to. The plan was daring. A small fleet of human ships would jump directly to the HFY home system. There, Admiral Patterson would offer peace terms that the HFY could not ignore. Greg Foster helped craft the message. We need to give them a way to save face, he explained. If we humiliate them completely, they'll just keep fighting out, of pride. 5 days later, Admiral Patterson's fleet appeared in orbit around the HFY homeworld. Panic spread across the planet as millions of HFY looked up to see human ships in their sky. Lord Zethar was forced to meet with the human admiral on neutral ground, a space station at the edge of the system. His 4 hands trembled slightly as he entered the meeting room. Admiral Patterson was already there, sitting calmly at the table. He wore no weapons and had only 2 guards with him. You could have bombarded our cities, Lord Zethar said as he sat down. Why didn't you? Because we're not like you, Admiral Patterson replied simply. We don't murder innocents to make a point. The Admiral pushed a tablet across the table. On it were Earth's terms. The architects of the attack on the human delegation would be surrendered for trial. The HFY would withdraw from 3 disputed sectors near Earth space. Reparations would be paid for the destroyed human colony. Lord Zethar read the terms carefully. And if we agree to this? Then the war ends today, Admiral Patterson said. We return to our space. You return to yours. Perhaps in time, we can build something better than just peace. The HFY leader stared at the human. You really would stop? After all we've done? Admiral Patterson's expression hardened. Make no mistake. If you reject these terms, if you continue to target our people, what you've seen so far will seem gentle in comparison. We've held back, Lord Zethar. Don't. Make us show you what humans are truly capable of when pushed past our limits. The message was clear. The HFY had a choice. Accept reasonable terms now, or face complete defeat later. Lord Zethar requested time to consult with his government. Admiral Patterson gave him 24 hours. Back on Earth, people waited anxiously for news. The war had united humanity in ways that nothing else had. Old enemies worked together, pooling resources and knowledge to defend their planet. Greg Foster prepared for either outcome. If they accept, I'll lead the diplomatic team to finalize the details, he told President Warren. If they refuse, well, Admiral Patterson has been very clear about what happens then. President Warren looked out at the rebuilt skyline of Washington, D.C. What do you think they'll do? Greg considered the question. The HFY are proud, but they're not stupid. They've seen enough of humanity to know we don't make empty threats. 23 hours later, Lord Zithar returned to the space station. His face showed no emotion as he placed a data crystal on the table. The terms are accepted, he said simply. The war is over. Admiral Patterson nodded. Then let's make sure it stays that way. The news spread quickly throughout human space. After months of conflict, the HFY War, as it had come to be known, was ending. Not with the destruction of either side, but with a hard-won peace. Greg, Foster prepared to depart for the Conclave Station where the final treaty would be signed. Before leaving, he visited the memorial to Susan Miller and her team. "We did it, Susan," he said quietly to the image of his former mentor. "They made a mistake when they killed you, and now the whole galaxy knows it. The galaxy made one mistake. They killed a human envoy." Part 5.1. Year after the end of the war, the Conclave Station looked very different. A new section had been built specifically for humans, with gravity and air similar to Earth. In the main council chamber, a human representative now sat among the 7 major species. Greg Foster had proven to be an excellent ambassador. Where Susan Miller had been killed before she could truly begin her work, Greg had successfully established humanity's place in galactic politics. Today was a special day. The Conclave was holding a trial for those responsible for the murder of the first human delegation. Lord Zithar and 6 other HFY leaders stood before a tribunal, made up of representatives from all Conclave species, including humans. Dr. Diane Russell sat next to Greg in the human section. Her work during the war had earned her a place on Earth's diplomatic team. She watched as the evidence was presented, including Susan Miller's final transmission. "The evidence is clear," said the Mithrani judge, her fur rippling with emotion. "The attack on the human delegation was unauthorized by the Conclave and violated our most sacred principles of diplomatic immunity." Lord Zithar stood tall despite his fallen status. "We recognize the threat humanity posed," he declared. "History will vindicate our actions." The Gazelle judge leaned forward. "You claim to have acted for the good of the galaxy, yet you did not consult the Conclave. You made this decision alone." "Because the rest of you were blind to the danger," Lord Zithar replied. "Look at them now. In just 1 year, they have advanced their technology by centuries. They defeated our fleet. They threatened our homeworld. Only after you attacked them first," the human judge pointed out. "You created the very threat you feared." The tribunal deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, their decision was unanimous. The HFY leadership was sentenced to permanent exile on an uninhabited planet at the edge of known space. Their species was placed under probationary status within the Conclave, with limited voting rights for 50 years. As the former HFY leaders were led away, Greg caught Dr. Russell looking sad. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Justice has been served." "I was thinking about Susan," she replied. "She wanted peaceful contact. Instead, her death led to war." Greg nodded. "Yes, but now we have peace. A stronger peace than we might have had otherwise. The galaxy knows what humans are capable of, both in war and in mercy." In the 5 years that followed, humanity's influence within the Conclave grew steadily. Earth ships now traveled freely through Conclave space. Human innovations in technology, medicine, and science were shared with other species. A memorial was established at the Conclave headquarters near the main council chamber. It showed holographic images of Susan Miller and her team. The inscription, written in both human and Conclave standard languages, read, "For Susan Miller and the First Contact Team, who gave their lives reaching out to the stars. Their sacrifice was not in vain." Admiral Patterson, now retired, often visited the memorial when he came to the station. Today he stood beside Captain Linda Summers, whose brave action aboard the Defiance had helped turn the tide of the war. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Linda asked. "Showing mercy to the HFY?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. "Susan would have wanted it that way," he finally said. "And it taught the galaxy something important about humans. We fight when we must, but we prefer peace when possible." On the HFY homeworld, changes were happening too. The younger generation had taken control of their government. Many of them had studied human history and culture, trying to understand the species that had defeated them. Brelthar, the new HFY representative to the Conclave, approached Greg after a council meeting. Unlike the older HFY, Brelthar wore simple clothing without the traditional decorations of rank. "Ambassador Foster," the young HFY said, "my people wish to propose a joint scientific mission with humans. We believe our technologies could complement each other." Greg was surprised. "That's an unexpected offer given our history." Brelthar's breathing slits fluttered, and what humans had learned was a sign of emotion. "The old leaders were wrong about your kind. They saw only the danger, not the potential. We wish to correct that mistake." Greg agreed to discuss the proposal with Earth's government. As he prepared his report, he reflected on how much had changed. The death of Susan Miller and her team had nearly led to a galactic war. Instead, it had opened the door to something new. A galaxy where humans were respected, not feared or dismissed. President Olivia Warren, now in her second term, received Greg's report with interest. "From tragedy to opportunity," she said. "Susan would be proud of what we've accomplished." Dr. Russell's team had continued their work studying alien biology and technology. They had developed new medicines and treatments based on galactic knowledge, saving millions of lives on Earth and other worlds. "The HFY still don't fully understand us," she told the president. "None of them do. They're still surprised when we do things differently than they expect. That's our advantage," and President Warren replied. "We're unpredictable because we're diverse. No single human can represent all of humanity, and that confuses species that are more uniform in their thinking." As the decade after first contact came to a close, humanity had established itself as a unique force in galactic politics. Human ships explored regions the Conclave had never visited. Human diplomats mediated conflicts between older species. Human innovations changed technologies that had remained static for centuries. Admiral Patterson, speaking to a graduating class of space officers, summed it up best. "The galaxy made one mistake. They judged us by their standards, not understanding that our greatest strength lies in being human. They killed our envoy, not realizing that in doing so, they awakened not just our wrath, but our determination to build a better galaxy." The memorial to Susan Miller and her team became a traditional first stop for new species joining the Conclave. It served as both a warning and a promise. Humans extended friendship to all who sought it, but they would never again allow themselves to be underestimated. In the end, the death of a single human envoy had changed the course of galactic history. Not through the war it started, but through the peace that followed. A peace built on understanding that humans were different from any species the galaxy had encountered before. A peace that would last because it was founded on respect, not fear. The galaxy had made a mistake, and in correcting that mistake, it had found a better path forward, with humanity leading the way.